Hello and welcome to Foreign Dispatches, the program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Amarachi Ubani. On the program this week, communities in Indonesia and Colombia begin the difficult process of recovery after devastating earthquakes in both countries. And in the Democratic Republic of Congo, authorities race to contain an Ebola outbreak that is now the deadliest in the country's history. We begin in Indonesia, where survivors of a powerful magnitude 7.7 earthquake and tsunami are appealing for more help. Thousands of people have been displaced across Flores Island, with families facing shortages of food and shelter as repeated aftershocks continue to keep communities on the edge.
Homes destroyed, belongings scattered, and places of worship badly damaged. Days after a powerful earthquake struck Indonesia's Flores Island, families in Marapokot are assessing what remains. The magnitude 7.7 earthquake also triggered a tsunami along parts of the coast. Indonesia's monitoring agency recorded waves reaching more than 1.5 meters at some locations. Residents here say they watched the sea suddenly retreat before the water came surging back through their community.
Ya, oke. Terima kasih. Jadi pada saat gempa terjadi, saya itu lagi ada di luar gereja.
After the water receded, the sea surged back with foamy waves chasing forward. The water crossed beyond the main road. We could not measure how high it was because everyone was in a panic. We all ran.
Oleng. Terus saya lihat
Tsunami sampai di atas nih.
The water was huge, about 2 meters high. The house was flattened. From the outside, it may look intact, but inside, it was destroyed.
Tapi di dalam hancur.
Across the affected region, more than 40,000 people have now been displaced. Many are sleeping in tents or makeshift shelters, afraid to return to damaged buildings as aftershocks continue. In some evacuation centers, officials say basic supplies are still limited.
Jumlah pengungsian di sini terkonfirmasi sampai dengan malam ini ada 1.493 orang.
The number of evacuees here has been confirmed as 1,493 people as of tonight. Regarding the evacuees, they have temporarily been distributed among 7 large tents, while there are 13 smaller tents. Given the number of people and how they are accommodated in each tent, there are still many shortages. One of the main issues is comfortable sleeping arrangements, particularly beds or mattresses, which are not yet available. For now, the only things we have been able to provide are mats and tarpaulins, which we have laid out for them to sleep on.
Waktu kejadian gempa kemarin di Wuring itu,
when the earthquake happened yesterday in Waringin, we had just finished the dawn prayer. We were leaving the mosque and were going to rest for a little while before going home. When we got home, about 10 minutes later, the shaking started. We were fully awake and aware. We had just finished praying at dawn, so we ran outside. We took the children and our wives with us and headed toward higher/open ground because we were still traumatized by what happened in 1992. Back in 1992, there hadn't really been an earthquake event like that elsewhere in Indonesia. The 1992 earthquake happened in Maumere, and later there was the earthquake in Aceh. The shaking in 1992 was extremely powerful, so we panicked. We actually thought the end of the world was coming because we had never experienced an earthquake like that before.
kita panik. Pikirnya kita mau kiamat karena kita belum merasakan sebelumnya toh.
More than 2,100 aftershocks have been recorded since Saturday's earthquake. Thousands of military and police personnel have been deployed to support rescue and relief operations. But landslides, damaged roads, and disrupted communications have made it difficult to reach some of the worst affected communities. Medical teams are still working to determine the number of casualties, though, and the full scale of the disaster is still being uncovered.
Sejauh ini kendala yang kami hadapi mungkin
So far, the main difficulty we are facing is probably the condition of the building structures. We still need an assessment of the building from the Public Works Department. While waiting for that assessment, we are continuing to treat patients outside in the hospital grounds, in tents. As for medicines and medical equipment, so far we have enough supplies. However, there are some specific needs related to fracture and orthopedic cases. We are currently requesting those supplies and support from the Ministry of Health. We also need specialist doctors, particularly orthopedic surgeons and neurosurgeons.
untuk kebutuhan juga kami membutuhkan dokter bedah tulang, ortopedi dan bedah syaraf.
Indonesia is prone to earthquakes and volcanic activity, lying along the meeting point of three major tectonic plates.
To Colombia, where communities are also mourning the victims of the devastating earthquake that struck the country early this month. The death toll has risen to 289, and in Cali, survivors have gathered for a candlelight vigil as attention increasingly turns to the long process of rebuilding.
Candles raised in memory of those who never made it out. In Cali, residents have gathered to remember the victims of the magnitude 7.4 earthquake that devastated parts of Colombia. The death toll has now risen to 289, with more than 4,000 people injured and 143 still missing.
We decided to hold a candlelight vigil to honor the people who are no longer with us, and also to give thanks for the lives of those of us who are still here and for everyone who has offered their help, those who have stood by us and supported us, from the rescue workers to the volunteers, the people of Cali, and everyone who has come from outside to help us.
The gathering also recognized the rescuers, volunteers, and others who have helped communities since the disaster. For those attending, it was a moment to grieve, but also to begin thinking about what comes next.
Yo creo que la velatón fue un momento para volver a regularnos, para volver a...
I think the candlelight vigil is an important moment for us to regain our emotional balance, to experience peace again, and also to rebuild our social fabric and feel the power of community. Because when we come together as a community, we begin to restore our hearts, our souls, and our bonds. And with God's guidance, we can feel calm again and feel strengthened and supported for whatever lies ahead.
Across Cali, that rebuilding challenge is enormous. Homes have been reduced to rubble, with clothes, mattresses, and personal belongings still scattered among the wreckage. Nationwide, more than 26,000 homes have been destroyed.
Seeing how things were moving during the 7.4 magnitude earthquake here in Cali, and then seeing how, on its final movement, the structure didn't return to its original position, but instead collapsed to one side, the wall on the side adjoining my neighbor Don Alberto's house, it's honestly something that is difficult to describe.
For some families, the earthquake destroyed homes built over decades, but survivors say neighbors and volunteers have stepped in to help clear debris and provide food and water.
We were praying inside our walls, and it was quite intense, and it just wouldn't stop. When we realized that the shaking was starting to weaken, we went outside. Then the condominium collapsed. We didn't know what it was at first. We thought it was a second aftershock. Then the shaking started again, and more things began falling. It turned out that it was the condominium next to us that had collapsed.
But the emotional loss goes far beyond bricks and concrete.
Arriving and finding your house turned to rubble is very hard. It is years of effort, of sacrifice.
More than 120,000 families have been affected by the earthquake. And while the emergency response continues, attention is increasingly turning towards reconstruction. For survivors in Cali, rebuilding homes may take years. Rebuilding lives could take even longer.
In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Ebola outbreak has become the deadliest in the country's history. More than 2,300 people have died. The virus is now spread to a sixth province as health teams battle community transmission, insecurity, and mistrust.
Another burial in Bunia at the center of the Democratic Republic of the Congo's worsening Ebola outbreak. Health workers in protective clothing carry the bodies of victims before disinfecting coffins and lowering them into the ground. Among those being buried, a 52-year-old man and a 5-year-old child.
These has taken our pastors from us. It has killed our pastors. And now, almost a week has passed, a few days, and we have also lost our bishop. And then we lost our pastor, our apostle, Prophet Samuel. In any case, we are deeply regretful and very saddened. We ask everyone, including the authorities, to respect the necessary measures and gestures of mourning condolence.
The outbreak is now the deadliest the Democratic Republic of the Congo has ever experienced. More than 5,000 confirmed cases have been recorded, with more than 2,300 deaths. And the virus has now reached Baswele, becoming the sixth province affected. Ituri remains the epicenter, but health officials say stopping transmission requires much greater cooperation from communities, particularly as infections continue to emerge outside known contact chains.
Nous avons eu en sécuriser aujourd'hui comme activité. Il y a 2 décès que vous voyez ici.
The people of the city of Bunia first need to understand that this disease exists and that it is a disease that is devastating us, the Congolese population. So, we are simply going to appeal to the government to take responsibility for our community outreach workers so that the awareness and sensitization messages can be properly communicated. That is what we want. We understand that perhaps the population is not yet sufficiently informed because if the awareness campaign had been properly carried out, we should not be experiencing the incidents that we are facing today.
Fear and mistrust are also complicating the response. WHO says its teams face resistance from communities almost daily, and an ambulance involved in the Ebola response was attacked this week.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, during the Ebola virus outbreak response, 12 attacks on healthcare have been verified since the declaration of the outbreak in May 2026. These attacks have disrupted surveillance, case investigation, contact tracing, treatment, and community engagements, and show how undermining not only the availability of health services are needed at a time as such, but also further affecting the capacity to detect and contain this outbreak.
Health workers also say some teams have also faced threats while carrying out burials and other response activities.
We are really extremely, very regularly challenged by these situations, by these attacks on healthcare services. Almost on a daily basis, we face some kind of reaction, from the communities. And again, these are difficult situations. People are having their relatives who are sick, who are dying. We really need to push under extra miles on the safe and dignified barriers by notably engaging those local people who are doing that in the villages, who are known for that, capacitating them, giving them a bit of chlorine, giving them a bit of gloves, to be able, obviously, to handle these bodies in a very safely manner, in a very dignified barrier.
The outbreak is caused by the Bundibugyo virus, a form of Ebola for which there is currently no approved vaccine or specific treatment. WHO has deployed 100 additional epidemiologists and more than 500 community health workers, while hundreds of additional treatment beds have been added. At its current scale, it is already second only to the 2014 to 2016 West Africa epidemic, which killed more than 11,000 people.
Still to come on foreign dispatches. 5 years after the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan, supporters celebrate what they describe as victory over foreign forces, while the United Nations warns of continuing restrictions on women and girls. That and more after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. 5 years after the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan, supporters have been marking the anniversary with celebrations across the country. But the anniversary comes as the United Nations warns of continuing humanitarian and economic challenges, as well as severe restrictions on the rights of women and girls.
Taliban flags filling the streets of Kabul and Jalalabad as supporters mark 5 years since the group returned to power. The Taliban seized Kabul on August the 15th, 2021, as the Western-backed government collapsed during the withdrawal of US and allied forces. For supporters, the anniversary is being celebrated as a victory over foreign military intervention after 2 decades of war.
I have come here to celebrate Independence Day, Afghanistan. Praise to God, on this day we were freed from the American occupiers. It is a great joy for us, and we have come today to celebrate this day.
Outside the former US Embassy in Kabul, armored vehicles joined the celebrations as crowds waved the Taliban's white flag. The final American troops left Afghanistan later in August 2021, bringing an end to a military presence that had lasted nearly 20 years. But 5 years on, the United Nations says Afghanistan continues to face profound humanitarian, economic, and human rights challenges, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the lives of women and girls.
5 years after the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, we stand together as a broad cross-regional group of United Nations member states in solidarity with the Afghan people, and we reaffirm our steadfast commitment to a future where all Afghans, without exception, can enjoy the fundamental rights, freedoms, and dignity in peace and prosperity. 5 years on, Afghanistan faces profound human rights, humanitarian, economic, and security challenges, placing immense pressure on the Afghan people and creating risk for the stability and security of neighboring countries and the wider region.
Women says more than 100 decrees have been introduced since the Taliban takeover, restricting women's access to education, employment, movement, public life, and legal protections. Schools remain closed to girls beyond primary level, while universities are open only to men.
Year by year, the de facto authorities have systematically dismantled the rights of women and girls, issuing more than 100 decrees that have stripped away their rights and institutionalized discrimination against them. Afghanistan is the only country in the world where women and girls face such far-reaching restrictions on their education, work, movement, public participation, and legal equality.
A UN Women's Survey found more than half of women questioned leave their homes only once or twice a month, while nearly 3/4 said they felt unsafe going out without a male guardian. UN officials say some women-led organizations have already been forced to reduce services, cut staff, or consider shutting down altogether. The Taliban is using the 5th anniversary to present an image of stability and control. But the United Nations says Afghanistan still faces deep economic, humanitarian, and security challenges, while calling on the international community not to allow the exclusion of women and girls from public life to become normalized.
And now to Sudan, where renewed fighting in North Kordofan is forcing thousands of more people from their homes. Families arriving in Omdurman say they endured hunger, thirst, and insecurity during the journeys spanning hundreds of kilometers as the country's humanitarian crisis continues to deepen.
Exhausted after traveling hundreds of kilometers, these families have finally reached Omdurman. Women, children, and elderly people sitting outside aging homes with little more than the belongings they were able to carry. They fled North Kordofan, where renewed fighting between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces is forcing thousands more people from their homes. For many, reaching safety meant days of hunger, thirst, and traveling on foot.
I swear to God, the suffering we have gone through cannot really be described. There was the heat, there was the thirst, and there was all the walking we had to do. We have been living like this throughout this whole journey. Even today, we are living in this kind of uncertainty and confusion. We had nowhere to stop and rest, nowhere to find shelter. When we arrived here, we found some of these mud houses and we took shelter in them. And as for food, honestly, there is no food. We have no money. There is no work either. No way to work and earn money to buy food.
But honestly, we left with nothing but the clothes on our backs. We have nothing. We only have some tea, and even that, we carry whatever little we can take with us. We even had to carry our father ourselves. We just put him on our backs, carrying him up and down. Honestly, we have suffered terribly. We, the people, have been left out there on the streets. Yes, they also took the phones from our children, took their weapons, knives, and they also took their watches. They even injured them, stabbing them in the leg.
Nearly 1,700 people, most of them women and children, were reported to have fled North Kordofan for Omdurman in recent days. And the latest violence is part of a much wider wave of displacement across the Kordofan region. More than 219,000 people have reportedly been displaced from the region since fighting intensified late last year.
Our humanitarian colleagues warned that ongoing violence continues to kill civilians and force more people from their homes. In North Kordofan state, local authorities reported that more than a dozen civilians were killed and others injured in clashes in Aradat, that's southwest of the state capital, El Obeid. That took place on Friday. The International Organization for Migration says that more than 4,200 people were displaced from the town and surrounding areas on Friday and Saturday. Increased violence across North Kordofan is also impacting humanitarian operations, as you would expect. This is forcing our humanitarian partners to suspend activities and health services for over 2 weeks in Al-Mazroub, which is facing a cholera outbreak.
Sudan remains one of the world's largest displacement crises. IOM's latest figures record more than 8.6 million internally displaced people across the country, with children making up more than half of those displaced. But humanitarian agencies are struggling to meet the scale of the need. The United Nations says this year's humanitarian response remains only 41% funded, leaving a significant gap between what aid agencies need and the resources available.
Arriving in Tawila displacement camp puts you in front of an unimaginable picture. The camp stretches across the desert in all directions. You can't see the beginning or the end of it. With more than 700,000 people displaced who are now sheltering there, and the new families who are arriving daily and are erecting their makeshift tents. Many humanitarian actors are present in Tawila, including UNFPA and its partners. And they're all doing an extraordinary job under very difficult circumstances. We do want to do more, but we're operating in a war context and with very limited resources.
Since fighting erupted between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces in April 2023, tens of thousands of Sudanese have been killed or injured. The UN estimates more than 25.6 million people are facing acute food insecurity.
And finally, on the lighter note, we end in India, where the skies above Tamil Nadu have been filled with more than 200 giant and colorful kites. Professional kite flyers from across Asia gathered in the coastal town of Mamalpuram for the 5th Tamil Nadu International Kite Festival. Take a look.
A riot of color over the Tamil Nadu coastline, from giant sea creatures and cartoon characters to a flying bull and even enormous strawberries. More than 200 kites filled the skies above Mamallapuram. The 3-day Tamil Nadu International Kite Festival brought together more than 30 professional kite flyers from India and across Asia. Participants traveled from Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Vietnam for the 5th edition of the event.
very nice and lovely. The place is the wind also perfect. It's for the 3 days, but I'm not the first time come here. This is my third time to come to the Tamil Nadu International Kite Festival, but I seen this more people coming in. Yeah, since yesterday is full of the people. Maybe they are happy.
First held in 2022, the festival has grown into an international showcase of giant and performance kites. And for those taking part, Mamalapuram's location on the coast provides one particularly important ingredient.
You have the beach, you know, you have the good wind in here. So it's very lovely. Immediately, our kite can fly without the problem.
Some kites performed aerial maneuvers, while giant stingrays, fish, horses, and other colorful creations floated above the crowds. A kite bearing the word Bharat, a traditional name for India, was also among the displays during the country's Independence Day weekend.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, very exciting. Yeah, exciting, and the wind is good. Yeah, we love here because I come here every year. Yeah, we come here every year and love the people here, the food here, and then the wind here also because we go to many places to fly kite, but India, Chennai here, the wind is perfect. During the 3 days, yeah, 3 days here, and then the wind is perfect. And then to kite flyer, wind is very important. Yeah.
With perfect coastal winds and hundreds of colorful creations overhead, organizers hope the festival will continue to grow as an international attraction. For now, though, it was a chance for visitors to simply look up and enjoy the show.
And that's Foreign Dispatches for this week. Remember, you can catch all our top stories and more on our website and across our social media platforms. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Thank you for watching.